Respected chairpersons, senior faculty members, and dear colleagues, good morning to all. Thank you, Team Providence, for giving me this opportunity today. So let's straight away go into this topic, which is after we all know how to give what type of insulin to be given, what regimen is best for us, for our patients. But whichever best insulin we give to the patient, sometimes they make some very common silly mistakes, and that ideal glycemic control which we target for our patients is never achieved. So a significant bulk of people are they are living with diabetes, and they are on insulin therapy as well for getting a satisfactory glycemic control. And we know insulin is undoubtedly the most potent hyperglycemic agent. But even then, a significant proportion of this insulin-treated diabetics fail to achieve the desired glycemic goal. That mainly is because of some errors in insulin therapy. So this is a very important and correctable factor in many of these patients. And these errors can arise at any step, like each and every step, starting from your consultation room while prescribing it for the first time to the point of administration. So today let's discuss some potential errors of insulin therapy, and let's see what are the preventive measures to overcome these simple barriers to achieve long-term glycemic control. So I'll be describing under these headings, that is starting from the prescription error to the injection site errors, dosing errors, the technique errors, and the storage errors. Insulin is a high alert medication, both inpatient and outpatient settings. And insulin can cause significant harm when administered in error. So in any patient, when you are suggesting insulin or prescribing insulin, first of all, you should do a pre-injection assessment, like whether this patient is having some those dexterity skills to administer insulin, whether the patient is able to have the cognitive capacity to understand this, and the general health literacy of the patient. Some numeracy skills should be there, at least regarding the dosage and all. And always ask assess whether they need a second person assistance to get this injection done because of their visual impairment or due to retinopathy or other factors. Then never forget to check the site. Many a time we assume that the patient know about these, but always check the site and look for some local infections, ulcers, and scars at the site of injection. So first, coming to prescription errors, this illegible prescriptions are very notorious among doctors, and it's not uncommon in a busy diabetic clinic. We all understand that. And many times we have seen patients who get admitted with severe hypoglycemic events following this misinterpretation of the prescription. Here, this patient was wrongly administered with 44 units of insulin instead of 4 units. That the dangerous use of that abbreviation U to indicate the number of units while prescribing insulin, that might be interpreted as a number, like 4 in this case. That 4 units was interpreted as 44 units. Similarly, in the second prescription, you can see that you may read it as 100 in the bracket. It is the doctor had written as 10 units. So this kind of misinterpretation of the prescription is very common, and it is our humble suggestion is to maybe avoid that use of abbreviation U to indicate the number of units while prescribing insulin. And it is also suggested to replace that BD. Sometimes we write for before dinner, we use a short form, which is not very standard, that before dinner as BD. But the nurse may take it as a twice daily for BD. So those kind of things should be avoided. Another thing is we should always write the route of administration clearly, the time of administration in relation to meals. And also while giving a premixed insulin, always remember to write the proportion, that is it a 50-50 or a 30-70 or a 25-75. So always mention these kind of things in the prescription very clearly. Now coming to injection site errors, these again, we always assume that patient knows the site of injection, and sometimes we will be encountering with some strained site of administration like the forearm or calf muscle. Patients, they don't know, they might administer in these sites. These are the easy sites for administration for them. And recently also we had another patient who came back with uncontrolled diabetes. His glycemic profile was very bad, sugars going up to 400 and 300. And he was telling that he is having severe insulin allergy. Whenever he injects the insulin, he is getting some erythematous wheel-like reaction at the areas, and the injection is very painful. So here again, when asked to demonstrate the technique of his administration, he was demonstrating it as an intradermal injection. So this is again is not an uncommon practice. See, there actually intradermal injections are more painful and they result in some cosmetically unaccepted hyperpigmented spots, and this might also increase the likelihood of insulin allergy. So ideally, to deliver insulin in the subcutaneous adipose tissue, patients are advised to make a lifted skin fold, and then they have to insert the needle at 90 degrees to the surface. And particularly in lean patients, suppose that anticipated distance from the skin surface to the underlying muscle is expected to be less than the needle length, you should definitely make a skin fold before injection. And average, the skin fold thickness of a human is around 2.2 millimeter by ultrasound records. So these new currently available needles of 4 millimeter and 6 millimeter, it is sufficient for both adult and a child. But even then, it is always advisable to make a skin fold by injecting. And correct pinch up is done only with the thumb and index finger, possibly with the addition of your middle finger as well. And the thing is, the pinch should not be squeezed very tightly. And extremely lean patients, they should definitely be using the skin fold to inject, as I told earlier. And another thing is, many patients, what they do is they release this pinch immediately once the injection is done, once the needle is pricking the skin surface. This should not be done because in case of high volume injections, part of insulin may be lost if withdrawn in a hurry. So it is advised to release this pinch up only after the needle is taken out of the injection site. Now, this again is a very common scenario. Many times patients have this inadequate insulin absorption due to these problems, lipodystrophies. This is mainly because of the patient is not rotating the site of injection. So this is the most important issue that we encounter. So lipohypertrophy is what you see in the first picture. This is manifested by focal swelling, which is very soft and rubbery in consistency. And this is mainly because of repeated insulin injections in a particular site. So the pathophysiology is thought to be the anabolic effect of insulin, which is playing this, which is causing this. So we frequently notice this again, and these patients will have a very unstable glycemic control. Because of course that injection within that hypertrophic site will definitely reduce the pain sensation, but the insulin absorption is quite unpredictable and delayed from these sites. So any patient visiting you after like a month or 3 months, you should definitely inspect the site of injection and look for lipohypertrophy. I will come to injection site rotation in the next slide. Another common occurrence, the second slide where you can see it is the lipoatrophy, but this used to be a very common occurrence in the pre-human insulin era. That was mainly thought to be due to allergic reactions to insulin or other components of insulin. But these days we are not seeing these very commonly. And so at every visit, you should palpate the site, not just see the site, you should palpate with your fingers and see for lipodystrophy. Again, inspect for infections, bruises. Everything has to be done by inspection and palpation. And if something is present, a different site should be chosen. Now coming to site rotation. So this happens due to poor or lack of rotation of injection site. So how do you rotate the sites? Ideally what you can do is you can ask them to divide the injection site into quadrants or halves. And one quadrant or half of what you have selected should be used for 1 week. And then they move to the other quadrant in a clockwise or anti-clockwise fashion. And even within the quadrant itself, you can ask them to do it at least 1 centimeter apart, that injection site. So this will optimize the insulin absorption and reduce the risk of lipohypertrophy. And yeah, these are the sites depending upon the absorption, speed of absorption, the maximum, the absorption occurs fast within your abdominal wall. followed by your forearms, and then moving on to the absorption is very slow in the thighs and also in the buttocks. So injection site rotation should be explained to your patient. Now, another problem is the infection at injection sites. This is mainly due to poor hygiene and improper cleaning of the injection sites. And similarly, sometimes that improper and unhygienic storage also leads to this, because there will be accumulation of dust, as you can see over that rubber cap of the insulin vials. This will also lead to infection at injection sites. So what they have to do is they have to, if they want to clean the site, they can use some water-soaked cotton balls and thoroughly clean the area, starting from the middle of the area and moving outward in a circular motion. And if they are using alcohol swabs, they have to wait till the skin is dry before injection, because otherwise there will be stinging sensation of the alcohol. And similarly, the top of insulin vial should be cleaned with an alcohol swab. So this you should instruct the patient. And another important thing is some patients, to make it very hygienic, they might clean the needle also with the with alcohol. But this leads to removal of the silicone coating of the needle, and the injections tend to become more painful. Another thing is, just like getting IM injections, there is a tendency to rub the or massage the injected area soon after the injection. This might again affect the absorption and potency of insulin. And you should always tell your patient not to exercise that part of the body after injection. Like suppose your patient is taking injections on the anterior thigh, then they should not immediately do a jogging or something. It may lead to a sudden drop in blood sugar because of faster absorption. So this is another important point. Now coming to dosing errors. See, this used to happen when we are using split mix regimens in the past, like using NPH and regular insulin. That is then mixing them up in a syringe. In the previously we used to do this. So here the sequence of filling is very important, because the clear insulin should be drawn first, then only followed by the cloudy insulin. Clear insulin is the regular insulin and cloudy is the NPH. So here this sequence should be strictly followed, because otherwise there will be change in pharmacodynamic properties of the components. So in this picture you can see that the regular insulin, Humalog Rapid, which is very clear solution, which is an unopened vial, which is very clear. But the opened vial which the patient was using is cloudy. That is because the sequence was not rightly done. So this will lead to the change in the pharmacodynamic properties of the components. And nowadays, with the use of premixed insulins, what happens is the resuspension should be done very systematically. And any other premixed and other cloudy insulins all need this resuspension, not only to ensure that proper dosing, but they need to maintain that appropriate concentration of the insulin remaining in the container. Another problem that we very commonly encounter, even in hospitals also, like in even our sisters also many times confuse this, because of the availability. In India, we have both U40 and U100 vials, and we have U40 and U100 syringes. So this mix-up very commonly happens. So what the red color syringe is the U40 syringe. It should be used only to fill take from a U40 insulin vial. Similarly, orange is the color for U100, and it should be used for U100 vials. So because this, I personally feel that these two colors are very similar in appearance, and it may be difficult for the patients also to at times to differentiate between these. So what happens when you take with a U100 syringe, if you fill from a U40 vial, actually you are taking 2.5 times lesser the dosage. So that correction should be done if at all this is happening. And another common error that happens is sometimes many times we leave the needle with the pen after injections, because patients tend to use the same needle for multiple times. So if the needle is left attached after use, there are more chances that air will pass into this insulin chamber, and there will be increase of contamination, and also higher, because of that air bubble formation, there will be inaccuracy in dose. And so what you have to do is always remove the needle from the device after injection. And when you keep the needle there, there are chances that when the cartridge is hot, there are chances of insulin leaking out. So if it is a premixed insulin, this will derange the mixture ratio. And this is a very funny error which happened. That is, this actually happened with a doctor patient who, because we assume that they know, I mean, almost every patient know that these things are to be done. That is not removing the inner cap of the insulin pen needle. Patient was telling that it is totally painless injections. That was mainly because the inner needle, cap of the needle was not removed. So even these simple things need to be taught to the patient. That is, outer cap should be saved for removing the needle from the pen after use, and inner cap is that is protecting the needle. So both, if you're not removing the inner cap, no insulin will be delivered. This should be taught to the patient again. And another thing, another second most common error that happens is people think that needle is always new because it looks perfectly okay to the naked eye. But if you look it under a microscope, you can see that the change between a needle that has been used twice and used 6 times. So it is, it's not the same. Most of our patients use the same needle for at least 6 to 10 times. So tell them, even in spite of telling them it is for single use. So what happens is it gets bent and that lubricant coating is gone. And sometimes there are chances that this will break off and lodge needle under the skin. Another thing is sometimes the insulin gets deposited within the needle, and the plunger is very hard to press once the needle is reused. So proper doses may not be delivered, and risk of contamination, infection, everything is there with this. And many a times your patient injects through the clothing because maybe they don't want to do that in public. So needle becomes unsterile, infection chances are there, it might be painful, irritation. So everything, that skin fold may not be there. Now coming to storage, improper storage is another thing because each insulin has storage recommendations by the insulin manufacturer. Pen, cartridges, vials, everything should be ideally refrigerated. It should be kept between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, but never frozen. It should never be frozen. So here what happens, sometimes patient stores it in the upper part of the door of that refrigerator, and maybe that freezer compartment door is broken. So it gets exposed to very high, very low temperatures, and insulin is denatured. So insulin loses its bioavailability when they are stored in the topmost part. And pen should be stored with, should not be stored with needles, as I told earlier, because of air clogging. So again, these, suppose in a rural area, because usually this doesn't happen in Kerala, but if at all patient is not having that refrigerator facilities, you can ask them to keep these in wide mouth bottle or earthen pots filled with water, put the insulin in a plastic bag and put it inside this. Now the expiry date is also important of insulin because that will be printed on the pen itself. So once you start using the pen, it will expire in 14 to 42 days according to the specific pen that you are using. So you should always look at the expiry date and see. Refrigerating a pen that has been used is not recommended, and it will not extend its shelf life. So there are many errors that are happening, as I told earlier. So there is no single takeaway or single or two. All these are, I think, basic takeaway home points. So one easy method that has been found very useful to avoid these errors in insulin administration is the teach back method. That is, when you ask your patient, once you have explained everything, you can ask the patient to explain it back to us in their own words, what they have learned. So this will assess the learner's skill and understanding, also the effectiveness of our ability to convey the concepts to the learner. So this can permit immediate remediation, like whatever they are finding, they haven't understood, we can clarify those skills, we can clarify it, and the concepts if they are not properly understood. So finally, a little more time spent by the physician or the nurses in a planned way while initiating this therapy can help these patients to learn and execute the appropriate insulin therapy. And also, finally, like we can also provide some the patient with some injection grids or illustrative leaflets on proper injection technique may be of help. And that education programs, periodic education program, and at every visit, speaking with the patient, discussing with the patient the problems. With that, I conclude my talk. Thank you.